Okay, let's start with a really provocative question from the source material we're looking at today. What if the past isn't real, only its shadow is?
That's the hook, right? It really gets you thinking.
It does. And for us, this isn't just some philosophical game. We're framing this deep dive as an inquiry into memory, repetition, and all those inherited patterns that quietly run our lives.
And that framing is so important. The source we're using, the shadow of the past and the power of pause, makes it very clear that it is not a self-help book.
Right. No quick fixes here.
No, not at all. The author explicitly says, no techniques, no formulas, and no promises of quick transformation. It's more of an invitation, really.
An invitation to what, exactly?
Into a deeper realization.
Yeah.
Figure out just how much of our lives, our choices, our habits, even our big societal reactions are just simple, unexamined repetition.
Instead of genuine present-day understanding.
Exactly. It's about trying to switch off the autopilot.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because we're not looking for instructions here. We're looking for, I guess, illumination. Our mission is to blend the psychological insight and the cultural analysis from the source to really get at the difference between what it calls inherited meaning,
which is the shadow,
and present responsibility, which is how we step out of that shadow and actually make a choice. So we have to start with how that shadow even gets cast.
We do. And the genesis of the shadow, what keeps the past alive, is this really subtle, quiet process. It's the moment something meaningful, a tradition, an identity, a belief, starts to lose its conscious vitality.
And it just becomes mechanical.
It becomes purely mechanical. And that brings us right to the core tension of the whole thing, this battle between repetition and reflection.
Right. I mean, we all have traditions and beliefs that started out as something incredibly powerful, right?
Yeah.
They were created to solve a problem or to honor something important. But the danger, as the source puts it, is that they can quietly turn mechanical. It's this slow decay where eventually repetition has replaced understanding.
It's like the difference between, say, reciting a poem and actually experiencing it. You can know the words, you can know the rhythm perfectly.
But the feeling is gone.
The feeling, the why behind it has vanished. The form is still there, but the function is hollow. Think about a habit, a really simple one, like checking your phone when you're bored.
I think we all know that one.
We do. The original purpose might have been to find a specific piece of information, but now the hand just reaches for the pocket before the brain has even registered the thought. That's mechanical repetition.
But I have to ask, isn't repetition sometimes necessary? I mean, traditions are vital for cultural identity, for a sense of continuity. Is the source saying all repetition is bad?
That's a great question, and it's a nuance the source is careful to address. It's not repetition itself that's the problem. It's repetition without reflection.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Well, when you repeat something thoughtfully, you're actually renewing its meaning for the present. But when it's just unthinking, just this is how it's always been done.
Then it gets disconnected from today's reality.
Precisely. It becomes a constraint. It starts to govern your attention and your choices, even when its original purpose has completely faded away. We end up performing actions whose why disappeared, maybe decades or even centuries ago.
And this is where it gets really personal for you, the listener. The source is aimed at people who feel constrained by inherited beliefs or identities. This isn't just abstract theory anymore.
No, it's a direct challenge.
It's asking you to identify where you are running on autopilot. Think about an inherited belief about success. Maybe it's real work is always hard, or some story about money that's all about scarcity, even if your reality is completely different now.
Those are the shadows at work, absolutely.
There are these beliefs about your career or your relationships that you inherited them fully formed, and you never really stopped to update them for your actual life today.
And they can be so subtle. These unexamined assumptions about effort or belonging or what's risky. If you're stuck in a job you hate, the shadow might not be a lack of skill. It might be an inherited belief that stability always trumps fulfillment.
A belief that made perfect sense for your great-grandparents in a different era.
Exactly. It made sense then. But today, it's paralyzing you. The moment you start asking why you believe it, that's the moment it starts running your life like a faulty script.
And that connects the personal, the micro, right up to the macro. Because this mechanism of automatic repetition, it scales up immediately.
It does. And that's how the past enters public life and starts to define our collective behavior. When enough of us default to that old script instead of present reality, that shadow becomes a huge societal force.
And real public discussion just gets replaced with what, the performance of old argument?
The performance of old grievances, yeah.
The source uses some really powerful contemporary examples here. You see it in issues like migration, which can trigger these incredibly deep-seated, centuries-old beliefs about identity and borders.
And that just overwhelms any practical present-day discussion about logistics or economics.
You also see it in public rituals, political ceremonies or commemorations where the form is followed perfectly with all this emotion, but nobody really knows the original significance anymore.
It generates a lot of feeling, but zero insight.
And it also explains the persistence of so much social tension. A lot of our public arguments are just replaying historical narratives, old grievances, old victories, over and over again.
We get stuck in these inherited emotional scripts, and they just dominate all the attention.
Which brings us to this really crucial paradox the source identifies. It asks why societies so often remain emotionally mobilized, yet practically stagnant. Can you unpack that phrase for me? What does that actually look like?
It looks like the world we see in the headlines every day. It's the condition of maximum outrage paired with minimum action.
So a lot of shouting, but nothing changes.
Exactly. We're generating enormous amounts of passion based on an inherited emotional script. But all that energy just cycles back into itself, reenacting the same arguments instead of finding a present-day solution. The energy gets consumed by historical reenactment, not by building something new.
Because the shadow, the inherited meaning, has replaced present responsibility.
That's the core of it.
And the source adds this tragic little kicker, which is that distraction feels so much more comfortable than awareness.
Of course it does, because if you actually recognize the shadow, you have to admit that maybe these intensely held beliefs, the things you've built your identity on, are just stale repetition.
Which means the fight you're in might already be over. Or maybe it was never even yours to begin with.
And it's just easier to stay busy, stay distracted, stay mobilized against a phantom than to face the quiet reality of the present. The comfort zone is the constraint.
So, if the problem is this automatic living, this unexamined repetition, what's the antidote? What does this all mean? The source is all about choice, but not in the usual way. It's the choice that appears when automatic living pauses.
And that's the whole key. The book's power is that it details the psychological chain reaction for genuine change. It's not about willpower. It's about awareness, which then unlocks choice. It's a very clear 4-step sequence.
Okay, let's walk through that sequence. This seems like the core prescription. Step 1 is slowing down the repetition. What does that actually look like?
It looks like physically stopping the automatic behavior. If your shadow makes you react defensively whenever a certain topic comes up, the pause is just deciding not to say the first thing that comes into your head.
Just that little delay.
That's it. That conscious delay interrupts the script's momentum. When the repetition slows, the script stops running. That's step 1.
And when the repetition slows, that leads to step 2. Attention returns. I get the logic, but why does attention have to return?
Because the brain hates a vacuum. When you're on autopilot, all your attention is busy managing the script. When you deliberately refuse to follow it, when you stop the spinning top, all that mental energy has nowhere to go but right here, right now.
It's released from the past.
It defaults to the present.
Yeah.
You're simply forced to notice what's actually happening.
And that returned attention makes step 3 possible. The present becomes visible. It's an act of clarity. You stop seeing the world through that old, distorted filter.
You stop seeing the person you're arguing with as a symbol of an old grievance, and you start seeing the person who is actually in front of you. You see the current facts, the current environment.
And that's the whole point, because visibility is the precondition for choice, which is step 4. Only in the present, made visible by that returned attention, can real change actually happen.
Right. Change requires present understanding and present responsibility, and you can't access those when you're busy reenacting the past.
What's so fascinating here is that the source is so clear that it doesn't tell you how to live. It doesn't give you a new set of instructions.
No, it refuses to. It doesn't prescribe a new belief system or a new identity.
It just says, if you can achieve the pause and let your attention return, the present will become visible, and the right choice for you will become obvious, give you awareness, not motivation.
The power is in the mechanism itself, not in any specific outcome. It shifts the focus from the hard work of forcing a different choice to the simple but radical act of just stopping the repetition.
The choice just emerges naturally from the clarity.
It does.
Which is the perfect way to bring this all together. We started by asking how much of our lives are just repetition. And we've seen that the past casts this long shadow over the present, making real choice almost invisible.
And the mechanism is that quiet replacement of understanding with mechanical repetition. That's what keeps individuals constrained and societies, as we said, emotionally mobilized but practically stagnant.
But the road to freedom, to genuine choice, is through the pause. That conscious moment when the automatic behavior stops, which allows attention to return.
And that returned attention reveals the present. That visibility is the starting point for all real change.
So if the core problem is that meaningful things, our traditions, our beliefs, have become so mechanical that their original purpose is gone, leaving us fighting old battles instead of facing today's reality.
Then that leaves a final and I think important question for you, the listener, to reflect on. If the constraint is the mechanical repetition of something that was once meaningful,
then what is it in your life?
exactly. What widely accepted tradition or belief in your life about money, about work, about relationships are you currently repeating that you haven't genuinely paused to reflect on in years? Is that belief truly serving your present life, or is it merely the efficient yet constraining shadow of the past?